So, the truth is that I am the smallest kid in the class. And that may seem strange to you. It may appear to you, I may appear to you to be a colossus of a man standing up here, towering. But the fact is that I am that short, scrawny kid who shies away from attention, who tries to blend in and not be noticed, and who gets picked on and belittled. And there's a very good reason for that. I was the shortest kid in my class, and overall the smallest kid in my class from about grade 4 to grade 11. And, this had a lasting impact on me in a way that you wouldn't think would last into, one's adulthood as a full-grown male who's 2 3/4 inches taller than the average North American male. And when you're short for all your childhood, you focus on those kind of stats. By the time I was in grade 8, I was 4'9" and weighed 80 pounds. And my size was just impossible to ignore. Everybody felt compelled to remark upon it. It was the thing everybody noticed. It was just this constant elephant in the room, except for the fact that elephants are big. This is a teeny tiny little elephant. Something would happen like a banquet for my baseball team, because we had a great pitcher and we won a bunch of championships, and we'd all get trotted out by the coach, and he'd say a few things about us, and my coach said about me, he's pretty good considering his size. And then by the time I got to high school, I was no longer the smallest kid in a class of 30 students. I was the smallest kid in a class of almost 200 students. And the humiliations and the belittling and the constant barrage of insults and just generally being kicked around, smacked, walk down the hall, be elbows flying in your direction, hands knocking you upside the head, it just became a kind of constant. Nobody would have called this bullying. Nobody would have said I was bullied. Bullying was not a word in those days. They would have said I was picked on. And if you were picked on, it usually meant you were irritating or pathetic or weird. And in other words, you had it coming. It'd be like, oh, you're short. What do you expect? Of course you're going to get picked on. But it was the sort of thing that just imprints itself on your psyche when you are in that really, really difficult stage of your life. And it became an obsession of mine to grow. It was the only thing in the world I wanted to do, was, if not be tall, at least not be as short. The problem is, if you're short, you can't really do anything about it. You can work out, you're not going to grow. You can take vitamins, you're not going to grow. You can hang upside down from a chin-up bar for 3 hours, you're not going to grow. There's no corrective surgery for being short. There wasn't at the time. I don't know. I haven't kept up with the medical literature, so it might have changed. So you come up with adaptive strategies, and there are a few different ones. A lot of short people, they adopt the Napoleonic strategy. You're small, but you become aggressive and tough. You punch above your weight, that sort of thing. But I was too small even for that. I would have just gotten killed. So I did the kind of Rudy strategy. Anybody seen the movie Rudy? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Pathetic. So I worked harder than everybody else. I tried harder. I got really good grades. I loved sports, which was a problem because everybody else was way bigger than me, but I found out that I could ingratiate myself with coaches and phys ed teachers by practicing more and working harder. And if you want to be popular in high school, do not be a short, scrawny kid who gets an A in phys ed because he tries hard. You might as well just take out an ad in the school paper saying, wanted, big strapping lunkhead to give me wedgies and cuff me around. Meet me on the school bus after school. So the thing is with teenagers, they're bottom feeders. You know, there's a line about comedy. I think, they say comedy, you're supposed to punch up, not down. Teenagers only know how to punch down, except, well, I couldn't punch down. They look for the vulnerable. They look for the weak. Nobody says, hey, let's take the quarterback down a couple notches. No, you look for the weakest person and you rub their vulnerability in their faces. And the low point, well, there was the first unintended pun of the evening, for me came in grade 11. There was a Christmas assembly, and the high point of it, second unintended pun, was Santa was going to come out. And some people had written letters to Santa saying what they most wanted for Christmas. And somebody wrote a letter supposedly for me saying, I wanted to be taller for Christmas. And so Santa comes out, and this was the climax of the assembly. And he comes out and says, well, we got something for you, Chris, and pulls out this pair of stilts. And then gales of laughter, the whole place just collapsed in hilarity, and I'm seething. I'm so angry and humiliated. And I was just ready to walk out, but they kind of physically pushed me to the stage to accept this award. Because I'd be a spoil sport if I did it. And nobody wants to be a bad sport and ruin everybody's fun. And I became fed up with this question. I was asked this, I don't know how many times I was asked this as a kid and as a teenager. So when are you going to grow? And there are all kinds of different versions of this. There was the gentle suggestion. So when are you going to grow? Like maybe I'd forgotten to. Maybe it was an option I should consider. There was the pitying one. When are you going to grow? You poor, pathetic wretch. There was the firm one. So when are you going to grow? Stop putting it off. Let's just get into the calendar and get it done. There was the rhetorical one. So when are you going to grow? Life sucks, but what are you going to do? There was this one. So when are you going to grow? Basic translation would be, if you said to your 30-year-old nephew, so when are you going to move out of your parents' basement? And then there was the one that I got most of all. So when are you going to grow? Like, what's your problem? Are you retarded or something? So eventually I got desperate, and I made an appointment with my doctor. And I asked him, so when am I going to grow? And he was evasive on this. He said, when you're ready. And I said, I'm ready. And then he was more evasive, and he said, don't worry about it. Most people grow. So this wasn't very satisfying. And I basically became resigned to a life of being short, being picked on, never having a girlfriend. And then when I was 17, I hit puberty. I'm not going to get into the details of how I came to that realization, but the proof was definitive. And I started to grow. In fact, I grew a lot by pretty much anybody's standard of growth. I grew 7 inches in 16 months. Yeah, it was something. And but when you look at what that is month over month, it works out to about that much per month, which is to say barely perceptible. So I'd finally achieved this thing. The one thing in the world I wanted to do, and nobody noticed. So I went to university. High school was finally over. That torment was done. And it was great at university. I mean, I still carried myself like a small person. I was shy. I didn't like being in the spotlight at all. This is traumatizing for me. I'm hiding it well, but this is trauma, being up here. And I was terrified of women, but, nobody knew I was short. So this was a huge upgrade. And the fall that I started university, my grade 13 commencement was happening. And this was a few months after the last time I would have seen pretty much anybody from my high school. So I was really looking forward to this because I thought, this is going to be a triumphant entry back into my high school. People are going to see that I'm finally above average height. And I can't wait to see the looks on everybody's faces. And then I got to commencement and nobody said anything. Nobody noticed. There was a party afterwards. And I saw one of my many nameless tormentors in high school. And I was really, really happy to note that he was about 3 inches shorter than me now. And I just happened to be in the kitchen where he was, and I just kind of said, hey, whatever your name is. And he said, oh, hey, shorty. And I just about went apoplectic. Not only did nobody notice, but this guy, he totally ruined my triumphant return to my high school. And that just hung like a cloud over me for the rest of the night. And actually, in a weird, dysfunctional, should talk about it with a therapist kind of way for years and years and years. And to this day, it still sticks in my craw, which, I guess in the end, there is a lesson there. And, maybe I've been tall for way too long to still be the smallest kid in the class. Thank you.